You know you're doing it for the right reasons, and that is all that counts, Jess said in a voice that ended the conversation. Susan's funeral was the next morning. Everyone from Silver Hills was there, as well as Greg and Rob and their families from Promise Point. She was buried in her own backyard. It was very hard on her boys, but having Jim and Lisa to lean on seemed to help them. The expanded security committee met over lunch and voted to accept an attack plan Gunny and Rob had collaborated on. They'd send a 3-man scout team to watch the compound. If a large raiding party was sent out, one of the team members would drive back to tell Gunny and Rob. They would have a 75 or 80-man attack force ready to go on an hour or two's notice. The attack force would take the compound, hopefully with little or no bloodshed, and then use the defenses that John had in place to defeat the returning raiders. It seemed like a good plan to Mark. Kurt's funeral was late that afternoon. It seemed as if half the county showed up. The service was quite emotional. Mark shuddered several times, realizing this should have been his funeral. He went back and forth between feeling guilty to being thankful he was still alive. At the cemetery, when the short service was over, Mark and Jess got into the long line to give their condolences to Kurt's widow. When they finally approached the front of the line, Mark saw that Greg Hardy was sitting next to her. Greg, when he saw Mark, leaned over and whispered into Mrs. Thompson's ear. She looked up at Mark as if she recognized him. When it was his turn to speak to the widow, Mark took her hand and squeezed it gently. He always felt so awkward in these situations. He never knew what to say. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Thompson. Kurt was a great sheriff. And although I didn't know him long, he was a great friend, too." "Thank you, Mr. Turner. Kurt always spoke so highly of you. I want to let you know that he valued your friendship." "Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. We're having a few people over to our house after this. I hope you and your wife will come." She smiled weakly. "We'd be honored," Mark said as he took a step to the side to let Jess shake the woman's hand and say a few words. When she was finished, they walked over to a group standing around us making small talk. A minute later, Rob and his wife joined the growing circle of friends. Rob squeezed Mark's shoulder and gave him a nod. While everyone else was chit-chatting, Mark saw Barney walking toward the group. When he reached the now good-sized circle, he spoke in a loud voice that seemed irreverent in the small cemetery. "Rob, I heard you've thrown your name in the hat to run against me for sheriff." Mark was amazed. The lack of electricity and phone service hadn't seemed to slow down the small-town grapevine. "I have," Rob said quietly and humbly. "Well," Barney said, making a conspicuous display of extending his hand to Rob, "I just want to wish you good luck." "Thank you," Rob said, shaking the offered hand. "Good luck to you, too." Barney pulled himself in close to Rob and whispered in his ear. Mark was close enough to make out what the insincere man said. "I don't know what you're thinking, Bowers, but if you run against me, I'll crush you."